Okay. Today we're going to start from a Mishnah on Samach Hamid Beis. 60b. Thank Hashem, you're able to learn Torah every day. In this course of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. You know, it's interesting. I think, will I be back for the Siyum? Yeah, I'll be back for the Siyum. And to finish the Masechta. Okay.
You want to come back soon?
Okay.
Or if you decide to give any of the shirim from Eretz Yisrael, time-wise, you'd be giving
possibly
in the afternoon, yeah. So just give me a day's notice.
Okay.
It'd be wonderful.
Okay, maybe. Okay. Well, I'll see what's going on. It's hard to plan anything. So we thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. And as far as we're learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. We're learning also for Shlema for my father, and also for Naftali ben Menucha Bela.
Your father's name?
My father is Tzvi Halevi ben Miriam Madel. I'll text it to you. Okay. Here we have a guy, this kosher wine, and they look inside, they see, what do you know, there's a non-Jew standing right next to the bar. Now the bar is the place where the wine falls into, it flows into.
Cistern.
Right, the cistern. So, now, it's not his wine, it's the Jew's wine. If the Jew owes him money, I was going to say more than he owes him money, but if this wine is a paitiki, apotheke, I think Daniel told me that's what it's called. That means that he's going to collect the money from this wine. So then he feels that it's his already. So there he's touching it. So then it's aser. It may not milva love, but if the Jew doesn't owe the non-Jew money, so then it's mutter because he doesn't want to be caught looking like a thief, touching the wine. He didn't touch the wine. We can assume he didn't touch the wine. Just imagine this. Did you touch it? No, I'm telling you, I didn't touch it. There's no camera. We assume that he didn't touch it if it was in a situation where he could have gotten caught.
But why are we saying that if the Jew has a loan due to the non-Jew, that it's asura?
Because the non-Jew feels that this wine is his already, because the Jew owes him money.
But doesn't the non-Jew, in this case the idolater, wouldn't he rather have the money? And why wouldn't we say, but if he was to make it nayin nesach by touching it, then the Jew couldn't sell it perhaps for as much or have enough people, and that will work against him.
Right, you have that option also. But since the non-Jew feels that he owns the wine, so then there's nothing holding him back from touching it. Okay. Next case is Nafal Abar Va'ala. Now we're going to have some cases where he touched the wine, but it was clearly not bekavana. He didn't intend to touch the wine. He fell into the pit. Nebuch fell into the thing of wine. Mother day of all things to fall into. Yeah, very good. Over there it was Al-Yidei Dabaracher. Here it's directly though. Mother Dubakana, he was measuring it with a stick. He wasn't intending to touch the wine. He was measuring the how much wine there is. Hittiz esatzir bakana, or he was flicking a bee out of the vat of wine. Or he touched the wine was foaming up, like beer foams up. So he touched it so that it goes down. And when you touch the beer, sometimes they put their finger on the beer. So they put their finger in it, and it makes it go down. So, b'kalelo hayamaisa, it doesn't mean it works. That's what they do. B'kalelo hayamaisa v'amri yamacher. Here was a story. All of these were stories, and the halacha was that they said that the lemaisa he touched the wine, so it's aser b'shtiya. You're not allowed to drink it, but you can still sell it. Now, what's happening over here is that you have to accept that there were two decrees of wine. One decree of wine is maybe Yayin Nesach, he may have poured it. In these cases, we don't have that concern. There's another decree of wine that he may end up marrying the daughter of the non-Jew. You start drinking wine of a non-Jew. So here, that applies even if he touched it. See, that decree, according to some opinions, as we're about to see, Reb Shimon, that's only if the non-Jew owns the wine. Who owns the wine here? The Jew. The Jew owns the wine. It's not the non-Jew's wine, it's the Jew's wine, just the non-Jew touched it. This opinion holds it doesn't matter if the non-Jew touches it, you also have the decree that maybe you're going to marry his daughter. Applies to other things also, but it applies to wine as well. Here we're discussing the wine. So when it comes to the wine, the Tanna Kama holds that it applies even if the Jew owns it. Reb Shimon says no, it only applies to if the non-Jew owns the wine. If a Jew owns the wine, the non-Jew touches it, you don't have that problem. You only have the problem of maybe it's Yain Nesach. In these cases, you don't have the problem of Yain Nesach. So therefore, you're even allowed to drink the wine. Not the Lesachavis. Let's say the non-Jew was angry. He takes the barrel and he throws it into the pit, into the cistern. They said this wasn't a problem. They said that it was kosher. He didn't touch the wine directly. He threw the barrel in. I'm just going to say over here that he rolled the barrel in and he was touching the barrel while the barrel was touching the wine. Nevertheless, we say that it's fine. Yeah. In a fit of anger. Right. A fit of anger. That's the translation there. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says that this is a first generation Amira, comes in and qualifies what's the case of the Mishnah that we just learned. Very common for this to happen. Vahu, this case that you told me that if the non-Jew is standing next to the wine, we're not sure if he touched it, so it depends if he has, if the Jew owes him money. Only if he has the loan is that wine itself is an apotheke, that he's going to collect from that wine. The Jew told him, you want to know what to collect from? He says, you're borrowing money from the non-Jew. Non-Jew says, but how do I know you can collect? He says, well, how do I know I'll be able to collect? He says, well, I have wine. You can collect from my wine.
Or he borrowed it to help him make the wine. Like the wine was in the conversation when he borrowed the money.
But it have to be that the collection was the apotheke is the collection. That's probably what happened, but the collection was from the wine itself. He tells him sometimes when someone borrows money, he says, "What's the guarantee? What am I going to collect from?" He says, "Well, I have this trust or that trust." He says where to collect from, like a collateral, but the collateral is you give it to him. This is where you don't give it to him. This is Amar Ravashi. Right. Amar Ravashi, Masnis Nami Deka. We have a Mishnah that proves this as well. The Tanan, because we're going to have on the next page, it says like this. It started in the Mishnah. Matar Yenai Shalevet Kechav Nesim B'Shusay. This is talking about where a non-Jew wants to go into the kosher wine business. So he hires a Jew to make him kosher wine. The non-Jew's name is Shapiro. Manischewitz. Okay. So those were Jewish companies. But today we have wines that are non-Jewish, and they want to make a kosher run. So what do? They get a Jew to come and make the wine for them. They hire a Jewish winemaker to come in. But they're keeping the wine in the property of the non-Jew. Now the Jew sells it on consignment. It's not the Jew. The Jew's just the winemaker. he sells the wine, and he gives the money back to the non-Jew. So, but he's allowed to go take the wine whenever he wants. The non-Jew writes him a note that says, "You don't have to pay me every bottle you sell. It's as if you paid me. You can take all the bottles you want, and it's as if I received the money from you. You'll bring me the money later." What does that have to do with Pesach? No, nothing to do with that. Here, all the bottles of wine are in the non-Jew's house. How does the Jew get the wine? Does he have to pay up front before every bottle that he's going to sell? The Jew's going to sell the wine. How does the Jew get the wine? So the non-Jew says, "You can take it whenever you want. It's as if I received the money." So then it's mutter. Then the non-Jew is not going to mix in. It's because the Jew already. He made it like as if the Jew bought all the wine. The Jew is going to pay him later, but it's as if he bought. But if the Jew has to pay for the wine before he takes it, this was a story in Beishan. So that was the name of a place. They said that it's prohibited. Did I skip a bit? No, the base of Asru. Okay. Now, Taima de'in meniche. What's the reason why they said that that it would be Asur in Beishan? That's because the only way he can get the wine is if he comes in and pays for it. But if he allows him to take it, then it's shari, then it's permissible. We see from this that the loan needs to be directly on that wine for it to be a problem. In other words, he has to be able to take specifically this wine. Let me see what Rashi says. Taking on credit, right? But he's writing for him. If he writes for him, it's kabalti mimcha ma'is. I received the money already. That means he owes him money, but it's still permissible. The non-Jew,
there's no
lien on the wine.
He has a lien.
Right. It's only if there's a lien on the wine. Here, when he's taking the wine, he still owes the non-Jew money. He has to pay him money, but there's no lien on the wine. So when the non-Jew says you can take the wine without paying me,
the Jew owes the non-Jew.
The Jew owes the non-Jew money, and so that if the Jew owes the non-Jew money, then that means that the non-Jew feels that he can touch everything that the Jew has. He says no, not that he can touch everything the Jew owns. Only if it's an apaitiki. Only if he says collect from this specifically. Okay. Nafal barvala. We go to the other cases where he touched it, but it was without intention. He fell into the pit and then he got up. Amar of Papa says Leishon Shalom Mace. That's only if he got up dead.
Then he didn't get up.
They pulled him out of the pit dead. Aval alachai. But if he came up alive, then it's aser. My time. What's the reason? Amar of Papa the dummy Allah made because as he's coming up, he says, "Whoa, that was close." And he pours wine to the idol as he's getting out of the pit. He says, "Whoa, that was close. Thank you, whatever the idol is." And he pours wine. So it's like a Yom Edom was the beginning of the Masechta, the holiday, where they start thanking their idol. Let's say it was measuring the wine with a stick. All of these stories were happened, and the sages said that it's prohibited to drink, but you're allowed to sell it. And Reb Shimon says that you're allowed to even drink it. I explained it based on a Ramban that I saw, that the Ramban holds that the Machlekes here has to do with the other reason for Stam Yenam, other reason for the wine. And even if there's no chash that maybe it was poured, but you may end up marrying the daughters, Reb Shimon's only concerned if he owns the wine, not if it's the Jew's wine.
Wait, but we didn't have Stam Yenam at this time. Stam Yenam was a takana much later on. So how you explain
this is no in the Mishnah they already had Stam Yenam. This is
I thought Stam Yenam was a takana that was made hundreds of years later. Did you see that the other day?
maybe Chol of Stam.
Probably ever looking at
looking at wine. That's a different story. Looking at the wine came hundreds of years later. Here we're not talking about looking. There's here obviously no. Here obviously there's no problem of looking. You see in the Gemara, the guy standing there and this, did he touch, did he not touch? You see clearly there's no problem with looking at the wine.
So what's called stam yein?
Stam yein means when the Jew owns the wine, or not if the Jew owns the wine. Any wine that wasn't poured for an idol would be stam yein. But it belongs to a non-Jew. If it's poured for an idol, then it's yayin nesach. It doesn't have to be poured. It could be agitated or touched, something like that. But other wine that wasn't touched, it wasn't this or whatever, but it's not in a Jew's possession or something like that, it would be stam
So
yein.
they didn't have in those days a yayin mevushal.
So they probably did have the yayin mevushal. Now, why does yayin mevushal work? Yayin mevushal you don't pour for an idol. Why does yayin mevushal work for stam yenim? You may marry the guy's daughter with the pouring in mevushal wine, because the decree of stam yenim was an extension of the halachos of yayin nesach. Since there's no problem of yayin nesach, they extended the decree of stam yenim only on what had the problem of yayin nesach.
And when did they extend it?
And well, it was in the we had a Mishnah before on Lamed.
So it was already started.
In the Mishnah they had it already. Yeah, what we were talking about there was just looking at the wine. Looking at the wine was something that came from the Shlah.
So that's an extension of stam yein.
Yeah, and that's only for Kiddush.
Made it taste better.
Shouldn't make it taste better. Not according to the theory. Okay. So here, where are we holding over here? Amar Avodah Barava. Avodah Barava says, Yenuach le Reb Shimon brachis al Reishai kshumat matfilu b'shtiyah. Should be blessings placed on the head of Reb Shimon. When Reb Shimon says it's mutter, he's mutter even to drink. Blessings on your head, right? Mazel tov, right? Because but when he says it's aser, he says it's aser even with benefit from. So here, Reb Shimon is extreme.
They say a bracha of that cup.
All right, that's right.
That's just a cup. It's a cup.
Say the cup of wine. Bracha if dein cup. I'm sorry. Is there Avodah Barava talking here? There are two Avodah Baravas. Where do you see that? Is that a Tosfos? The Rashash says it's two Avodah Baravas. Why does he have to say that? I don't know why he has to do that. Oh, he wants to say you would only. Oops, I fell into the tip. Wants to say that he would only say brachas on the head of Reb Shimon if Reb Shimon was alive. So it must be it's a different Avodah Barava. It's cute. Okay. All right. The Rashash was very free to make changes. He was, very like a lot of courage. Okay, he was wealthy, so he had like this. Okay. Yeah. Alavai, we should learn the Gemara like the Rashash. But anyway. Okay, Amar Abchia Breder Abba Bar Nachmeni. You hear this? Abba Bar Nachmeni. Usually we have Rabba Bar Nachmeni. This is Abba Bar Nachmeni. Rav Chia, the son of Abba Bar Nachmeni, says the name of Rav Chizda. Amar Rav, who says the name of Rav. Amil Amar Rav Chizda Amar Ziri. Some say Rav Chizda says the name of Ziri. Halacha Reb Shimon. Halacha like Reb Shimon is lenient. Ikadam Amar Rav Chizda Amali Abba Bar Chonan Hacha Amar Ziri. Halacha Reb Shimon. Some say that it was Abba Bar Chonan that said that Ziri says Halacha Reb Shimon, and then the Gemara concludes Vein Halacha Reb Shimon. But all that it doesn't stick because the halacha is not like Reb Shimon. There was a story. He threw a barrel, and they said that it was in it fell into the pit. They said that the wine was kosher. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says Kol shevazav tamei by b'tkad meisi ayin nesach. Talking about anything that if a zav would touch would be tamei. The zav would have to touch something directly, or what you have to do is like this. You have to imagine that the non-Jew here is a zav. Is a zav. He's rabbinically zav, but don't confuse that. But imagine the non-Jew is the zav, and he's touching the wine. Would the wine become tamei if it would be a zav? Then it would be yayin nesach. If the wine would not become tamei if it was zav, then it's not yayin nesach. Now,
yeah, but here he didn't touch the wine.
He didn't touch the wine. He threw the barrel, so it should be fine, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Talking about whether he touches it with a stick or whether he touches it directly, the same halacha would apply. Eishvei, the Gemara has a question. Eishvei Rav Huna Rav Ashi. Rav Huna asked Rav Ashi, not less achavas v'zarka b'chamasi labar, zeh ma'is b'shan v'chshirei b'chamasi yenshlei b'chamasi lai. Why is it tar here? Because he threw it because he was angry. Why do we say that there was the wine is okay, the wine is kosher? It's because he threw it and he was angry. But let's say he threw it not because he was angry. Then we would say that maybe he was trying to touch the wine. That's it's a little indirect, but it looks like it would be a problem with the wine. Now, if a zav would throw something, it won't be tamei. Not if the zav would throw something.
Why do you say the zav is a goy? Why
If the
can't
zav
it be a yid?
1 second, now let me just tell you. I'll explain. If the zav would throw something at something else, that thing would not be tamei. And here we're saying that the wine should be tamei. Now the zav. Let me tell you, Josh. The halachas of a zav apply only to a Jew. Now there is something we learned before that every non-Jew has a rabbinic decree on him that he's considered like a zav in order to keep the children away from the non-Jews. They shouldn't play together or whatever. That's not our discussion here. Our discussion is the contact between zav and item that's becoming tamei. We're doing a comparison. If a zav could make this tamei, then there's examples of that. If this could happen to this, then we would say, okay. The Gemara says, 1 second. Over there, Hasim dekazol minei over there, the non-Jew that was in his fit of anger was pushing the barrel into the pit. He didn't throw the barrel into the pit. He was rolling it into the pit. So he was still in contact with it when it touched the wine, because he was rolling it with his hands while it was getting into the pit. Like one of my kids would have tantrums. The terrible twos. They have tantrums.
Only one of you kids?
So one of them did the following. One of them, he would in his tantrums, he would bang his head on the floor. That was his tantrum to show. I told you I wanted the, whatever. So he'd bang his head, but he would look for a soft spot on the carpet first. So they find a nice place, and then they say, "See, I'm angry." So anyway, here the non-Jew, he's rolling the barrel into the pit. He's in a fit of anger, but he rolls it into the pit to let you know he's angry. So, right. So anyway, the chiddush is over here that you could have thought that maybe he would have touched the wine, we say no, he didn't touch the wine. But if he wasn't angry, then we do suspect that he touched the wine.
Usually when you're angry,
Right, that's what's happening. That's why it's like a little surprising. In this case is weird. This is what happened. We're not saying that when a non-Jew gets angry, he rolls it instead of throws it. In this case, he was rolling it. Here we have a what we learned before is the non-Jew that's making a Jewish kosher run of wine. He hires a Jewish winemaker to come into the winery, and so where does he keep the wine? He keeps the wine in the possession of the non-Jew. That's a problem. The non-Jew could touch it, right? So it's like this. The place where it's being stored is open to the public. Public can look inside. It's also in a city that has Jewish and non-Jewish people there. The main point is that there's Jewish people there. So we know the Jewish people walking by are going to right away spot the problem and say, "Vos, there's a non-Jew in the winery." So they're going to be careful. So that case is mutter. But if there's the whole place is non-Jewish, right? They tell you that in this place, place in New Zealand was called Chacha. They called it. They didn't. It was Yashka Church, whatever they call it. The city. That's the name of the city. So, so they have a city like that. So, there's not any. There's no Jews there. Then it's going to be usher. Until there's someone sitting there, you need a mashgiach that's there, that's watching. The mashgiach doesn't need to be there the whole time, but it's mutter. Even if he comes in and out, that's good enough. This is where you get that concept of yetziv v'nichnas. Something called mashgiach tmidi. There's mashgiach yetziv v'nichnas.
I thought you can only do when it's a non-shum only.
Yeah. Right. It's a good question, right? We'll have to go through this thesis and see all the details. Okay. Apparently, Yetziv V'Nichnas works according to this, and yeah, I'm sure that you have big notes on this. Anyway, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, now, the Gemara is going to have two ways of learning this. One way of learning this is going to go like this. We're seeing now that it's only because the wine is in the house of the owner of the wine, or in the factory, in the winery that belongs to this person. But let's say you stored the wine in someone else's house, another non-Jew. So then we didn't say that it's a problem. It would probably be permissible. So that's the opinion of the Tanna Kama. Comes along Reb Shimon ben Elazar and says, no. That non-Jew that you put the wine in his house, he's friends with the non-Jew who owns the wine. And he tells him, he invites him over. He says, you can touch the wine. It's your wine, you can touch. The non-Jew that doesn't own the wine is not going to say he doesn't want to look like a thief. People could look in. Even from non-Jews, he doesn't want to look like a thief. But yeah, we're going to discuss it in a minute. Okay. That's one way of learning. We'll see in the Gemara. There's another way where it's sort of like a rhetorical statement. Not rhetorical. It's said in surprise. You have to read it differently. That's we'll see in the Gemara. If there's a non-Jew that's doing a kosher run, and the wine is kept in his possession, and the non-Jew tells the Jew, the Jewish winemaker, he says, "You're going to sell the wine for me. It's as if I received the money. Just take it and sell it. It's you don't have to ask me before you take it. It's yours. That's the Mishnah that we quoted on the page before earlier today. But if he doesn't let him take it, he has to say, pay me before you take it. So then it's this is going to be prohibited because the non-Jew could be considering all the wine his, and he's touching, he's drinking, is okay. Even if the city is entirely non-Jewish, you told me that it's going to be a problem unless you have a mashgiach that's Yosef Nichnas. But what about the Jewish peddlers? I know that this whole town is only non-Jews, but what about those peddlers that come in? Jewish peddlers come in, the merchants. They come in and they sell things, so they would be able to see if it's right. The Israeli tourists. Amar Shmuel says, we're talking about a city that actually has a lock, but you don't have just tourists coming in, or you don't have peddlers coming in unless it's open. When they open it up, then the guy's going to be careful not to touch it. So then you're going to need a mashgiach there. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef says that a window is like Rishus Harabim, everyone can watch it. And today we would say that the security camera maybe is the same. Should be like Rishus Harabim, people could watch. Ashbakir Rishus Harabim, if it's a garbage heap in front of it, that's also like a Rishus Harabim, everyone comes by. Vidikla Rishus Harabim, if there's a tree over there, that's a palm tree, they're going to come and get their dates from the tree. When they climb up the tree, they could look everywhere they want. Well, Pasuk Reisha, let's say the top of the palm tree fell off. You know the palm trees, they have a top.
It's the lulav.
Yeah, this is more than the lulav. This is not just the top of the palm tree, it's the lulav, but in Bal Harbor, they have the royal palms.
Right.
In the royal palms, the tops fall off when in big winds. So they just have the thing, but they can put it back on. They have these tall poles that are holding the top on, so it grows back together. Anyway, let's say the top fell off of the palm tree. Here it's a date palm. The top fell off, so there's no dates. There's no dates. So what are you worried about? The guy's going to climb up. What's he going to do? What's he going to climb up for? So Pligi bar Ravach and Ravina Chadas v'chad shoy. It's a machlekes Ravach and Ravina. One says that it's aser because he's not going to climb up. He's not going to look in to see what's going on in the winery. The other one says it's mutter. Manda aser. Lamalei desalikasim. What's he going to climb up a tree without any fruit in it? Mandashari, the one that says it's mutter, zimna da'avdalei behema basalik lina basrei. He needs a vista. He needs a lookout point. He has to be like a lighthouse, right? He wants to climb up there just to be able to look and see where his animal is. Yeah, I wasn't on those police helicopters, but someone told me that they have like a magnifying glass on the bottom, and they can see when the police they can see like it's right there, like the way they look down to see. It's like everything is magnified. Anyway, okay. Taner Rabbanan. Huh?
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Right. Okay, the following brisa is going to have 4 cases. It's going to be interjected by Rabbi Yochanan in the middle. And then afterwards, we're going to have to discuss the 4 cases. So I put numbers in mine to make it easier, but let's see. Taner Rabbanan. Taner in the brisa. Case number 1. It says echad, but that's not referring to the case number. Echad. Echad means whether. Whether echad halekeh means 1, but it means echad halekeh v'echad hasecher, whether he purchased it or whether he bought hasecher bayis b'chatzer shleivit kavin, or he rented. Either he purchased or he rented a house in a courtyard of a non-Jew. He's using it to store his wine. It's probably a cooler. Yisrael dar bayis sechatzer, and there's a Jew that lives in that courtyard. It's mutter. The wine is mutter. None of the non-Jews of that courtyard are going to sneak into the cooler, to the wine cellar, to touch the wine. Anyone that looks at them will say, "Hey, thief, get out of there." And even though there's no lock and there's no seal, no one's going to want to be in there. That was case number 1. Case number 2. let's say, what happened?
I said, we'll only ask questions because we
Oh, I
want
wanna
to
finish.
get to finish them.
Let's say the Jew lives in a different courtyard, not in the courtyard where he's storing the wine. It's mutter. The wine is still permissible. However, he has to have a seal, he has to have a key. You need these things in place in order for it to be mutter. So it's really usher, unless you have the seal. Case number 3, if the non-Jew is making a kosher run, so he gets this non-Jewish winemaker to do that, and he's doing it in the property of the non-Jew. But there is a Jew that lives in that property. Then it's mutter, but he still needs, over here, the wine doesn't belong to the Jew. The other case, the wine belonged to the Jew. Here, the wine belongs to the non-Jew. So here we don't have a concern. Here we have a concern that maybe the non-Jew is going to walk in there and touch it. What are you going to say? You're a thief? He's not a thief. It's his wine. You just made a kosher run. He's not going to be a thief. So we say over here, he has to have a lock and a seal. When the Tana was teaching this, Brisa, Rabbi Yechanan says, he interjects, he says, Tani, you have to teach it a little different, very different. You don't need a seal, even though it's the non-Jew's wine, but there's a Jew that lives in the courtyard, so he doesn't want him to be seen that he's strafing up the wine. Okay, it's like there's a mashkiach, right? Like there's a mashkiach there. If the Jew lives in a different courtyard, then it's asr even with a seal. That's what Rabbi Meir says. The Chum say no, it's only asr if there's no mashkiach. Or if you have a someone that's hired to come to check it out at regular intervals. The Gemara is going to ask regular intervals is a problem because regular interval means he knows when to be. Today the inspector's coming, no one touched the wine, right? So that would be a problem. The Gemara is going to adjust this. Now the Gemara says, Chachamim Ahei, which case did you say that you need to have a shomer, a mashkiach? If you say it's the very last case was where the non-Jew was making wine, hires a Jewish winemaker, but there's no Jew in that courtyard. When it says Tanakami Mesukasa, the Tanakama also says that it's Aser. Tanakama would be Reb Meir. Even if he has a key, even if he has a lock on it, it's still Aser. So the Chum say it's Aser unless he has a shame. The same opinion. There's no machlekes. Ella Aresha de Seifa. It must be we have to go back to case number 3. What was case number 3? Where you had a Yisrael Aresha de Seifa. It's in the idolater's domain. And the halacha was that Rabbi Yechanan, either you need a key or Rabbi Yechanan adjusted it where you don't need a key. So the Chachamim say that you need a shomer, and Rabbi Yechanan tells the Tana that you don't need a shomer. So, but Rabbi Yechanan told the Tana, now it could be a machlekes that the Chachamim argue on the Tanakama, but that would be a very extreme machlekes, where Rabbi Yechanan says that the Tanakama holds that you don't need any key there; it's automatically kosher, even without a lock. It comes with Chachamim that say you need a shomer there the whole time. That would be too extreme. Ella Sefer the ratio. Rather, we have to go back to case number 2. No, case number 2 was where it was the wine belonged to a Jew, but the Jew didn't live in that courtyard. The Tanakama says that it's mutter if there's a key, there's a lock and key. The Chum say a lock and key is not enough. You need a mashkiach. Mamuna, the Gemara asks, Mamuna bal kitzin griyusi. When you tell me about the mamuna, the mashkiach that comes at regular intervals, that's a problem. That's making it worse. Ella, rather you have to say, Achiyavim mamuna sheina bal kitzin. You have to wait. It has to be in a case where the inspector comes, the mashkiach comes, not at regular intervals. Exactly the opposite. That's what's better. How often does the mashkiach come to the restaurant? He comes every Sunday at 9 o'clock. That's not good. As we have no idea when he comes. That's how it's supposed to work. Okay. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Reimer, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says that the non-Jew has all the non-Jews have the same. It's all one property. Okay. Now the Gemara asks like this: Ibaylu, Reb Shimon ben Elazar lahakel elahachmer. Is Reb Shimon ben Elazar saying to be lenient, or is he saying to be strict? Now, what it means to be lenient is that the Tanna Kama said like this, that if the entire city was non-Jewish, then you're not allowed to leave it in the house of the non-Jew. And the Tanna Kama would also hold that you're not allowed to leave it in any other non-Jew's house. It comes along Reb Shimon ben Elazar and says, are all non-Jews one owner? Put it in another non-Jew's house, then if he tries to drink it, then they're going to look at him like a thief. It's not all one owner. So he's saying it in a surprise. What do you say? In a bitmiyah, in astonishment. Are all non-Jews one? Or is he saying it directly? And now, if he's saying it directly, then it would go like this. The Tanna Kama said that only if it's in the house of the house of the non-Jewish owner. But if it was in another non-Jew's house, then it would be permissible. And comes along Shimon Elazar and says straight in a not in astonishment, in a direct form. He says, no, all non-Jews are one. Now the Gemara will explain. Rabbi Yehuda Ziri lahaka. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Ziri that he's being lenient, and he's saying the Tanna Kama is being strict, and he's saying that in another non-Jew's house it's permissible. Rabbi Nachman Ziri lahaka. Rabbi Nachman says that he's being strict. He's saying that you can't put it in another non-Jew's house, not in the wine owner's house. Even in someone else that wasn't the owner, it's also prohibited. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Ziri to be lenient. So the Tanna Kama is saying like this, and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is going to be lenient. Tanna Kama says, just like in the owner of the wine, it's also to leave it there because he's going to drink from it, he's going to take it, he's going to touch it, and no one's going to say he's a thief because it's his. Also, in someone else's property, it's also going to be usher. Even another non-Jew, it's also usher. And because we suspect that he's going to say like this, this non-Jew that's holding the wine for the other non-Jew is going to invite the other non-Jew over and say, look, come, you can take some of your wine. And when you store my wine, I'll come over to your house and I'll take it up from there. Goimlin is like this agreement that they have, that they reciprocation. Shimon ben Elazar says no, it's only if it's in his own property. Shimon ben Elazar says we don't suspect the Goimlin. We don't suspect this, and it's only if it's in the owner's property. Rav Nachman says exactly the opposite. The strict. Tanna Kama says, when do we say that it's prohibited b'shusay? That if it's in the owner's property. The Tanna Kama is not concerned of reciprocity. Reciprocity. That's it. Reciprocity. Shimon ben Elazar says, it's all one. They're all in cahoots, and they're okay. Tani Kabaseder of Nachman Amazir Lahachmi. We have a brisa that supports that Reb Shimon ben Elazar is the one that's strict. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Kol Shosayv Chamachasim Pnei Ramayim. Shimon ben Elazar says that all the non-Jews are all the same. They all the liars, and they all the reciprocity. They're all going to say, "I'll cover for you, you cover for me," and we'll okay.
Sounds like Congress.
That was my question.
So why did they do that there? They're all one.
The friends means that they're one. That goes together.
Like Democrats.
The Bay Parzek Rufila. The house of Parzek Rufila means that he was second in command to the king. He put wine. He had kosher wine, and he left it with with an aris, with a sharecropper, someone that managed this field. When do we say that there's reciprocity? That's only if reciprocity, if they're both at the same level of status. But because the aris is a blue collar worker, and this person is nobility, he's not going to put his wine by him, so there's no problem. Gaimlin is when they have this
Where it's equal.
When they're equal.
One
So
Here he has a fancy wine cellar with old wine.
right. But the artist doesn't have his artist's wine is like Rashi wine. He's not going to put his wine on. Okay.
Rashi one's good.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Josh.
Amalu Rava. So Rava tells them they were saying that it should be leaner. Rava says Adar Rava. On the contrary, even if you don't hold of gaim, even if you don't suspect that there's reciprocity, that's only if he has no fear of him. Then he's going to cover up for him because he's afraid of him. So when the second to the king is going to come in, he's not going to tell anyone, right? He's going to cover him. He's going to protect him. There was a city that they had Jewish wine there, kosher wine. They found a non-Jew that was standing between the barrels. Amar Rava says, if he's weak and he's afraid of getting caught, then the wine is mutter. But if he's a powerful person, he's not afraid of anyone, then the wine is going to be usher. Yeah. Okay. There's a nice piece over here on the bottom, this maskana of Rashi. Basically divides it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cases of what the halacha is. We'll have to leave it.
So we're one daf behind.
One daf behind. Okay. Dr. Stein will be teaching for the next 2 weeks about.
So,
Dr. Stein.